This is the Ramana Maharshi Self-Knowledge Satsang, a time for self-reflection and self-inquiry. Know yourself and be always free and at peace. Welcome. I'm Richard Clarke, hosting this satsang. I'm a seeker like you, sharing what we love. I've been blessed with years of deep teaching. I bring this to you with this satsang. The background image today is Tortoise Cave, the place of what is called Ramana's second death experience. Let me move out of the way so you can see it. When Ramana first went to Tiruvannamalai, he sometimes moved about in a state of trance. This didn't completely end until about 1912, when there was a final and complete experience of death. He set out from Virupaksha cave one morning for Pachaman Coil, accompanied by Swami and others. He had an oil bath there and was coming back and nearing Tortoise Rock when a sudden physical weakness overcame him. He described it fully afterwards. The landscape in front of me disappeared as a bright white curtain was drawn across my vision and shut it out. I could distinctly see the gradual process. There was a stage where I could still see a part of the landscape clearly, while the rest was covered by an advancing curtain. It was just like drawing a slide across one's view in a stereoscope. On experiencing this, I stopped walking lest I should fall. When it cleared, I walked on. When darkness and faintness came over me a second time, I leaned against a rock until it cleared. The third time it happened, I felt it safer to sit, so I sat down near the rock. Then the bright white curtain completely shut off my vision. My head was swimming, and my circulation and breathing stopped. The skin turned a livid blue. It was the regular death hue, and it got darker and darker. Vasudeva Shastri, in fact, took me to be dead and held me in his arm and began to weep and lament my death. I could distinctly feel his clasp and his shivering, and hear his words of lamentation and understand their meaning. I also saw the discoloration of my skin and felt the stoppage of my circulation and breathing and the increased chilliness in the extremities of my body. My usual current of awareness still continued in that state also. I was not in the least afraid and felt no sadness at the conditions of the body. I had sat down near the rock in my usual posture and closed my eyes and was not leaning against the rock. The body, left without circulation or respiration, still maintained that position. The state continued for some 10 or 15 minutes. Then a shock passed suddenly through the body, and circulation revived with enormous force, and breathing also, and the body perspired from every pore. The color of life reappeared in my skin. I then opened my eyes and got up and said, "Let's go." We reached Virupaksha Cave without further trouble. This was the only fit I had in which both circulation and respiration stopped. This brought about a change in the way that Ramana interacted with those around him. Ramana's second death experience seemingly opened the door for an embracing of family and outsiders that previously had not manifested itself in Ramana's previous outward actions. The new experience may not have upstaged his previous realization, but it did serve to integrate him with his body vehicle and with life. After this, he was more at ease in everyday circumstances and began to increasingly associate with those seekers who gathered around him. Before Ramana left Virupaksha Cave, this is a place that he would come to often. This was in the period where Ramana did much roaming all over Arunachala. In those days, there was not the vegetation and trees on the hill that there is today, and there were few places where there was shade. This is one of those places, and apparently was frequently visited by Ramana. Here are some pictures that Carol and I took that when in 2009. Walking through the village on the way to Tortoise Cave, our guide Saran is leading us. Here is the path up the hill. They've got steps cut in it. And now it's no longer a path. Carol climbs up the hill assisted by Saran. Here is the big temple from Tortoise Cave. And now Carol is sitting on the big rock in Tortoise Cave. I wonder, is this where Ramana sat? Above the cave is a rock face that looks like a tortoise head. This is how the cave got its name. And here is a map showing Turtle Cave, Tortoise Cave. Arunachala Temple is in the lower right. And now, on to this week's reading from Who Am I? We're at paragraph 37. Ramana's words. To enquire, who am I that is in bondage, and to know one's real nature is alone liberation. to keep the mind constantly turned within, and to abide thus in the self is alone Atmavichara, self-inquiry, whereas dhyana, meditation, consists in fervent contemplation of the self as Sat-Chit-Ananda, Being-Consciousness-Bliss. Indeed, at some time one will have to forget everything that has been learned. Liberation consists of knowledge. Ramana says to know one's real nature is alone liberation. This is the entire purpose of spiritual practice. Keeping the mind turned within on the first person, the I, is what inquiry is all about. The heart of the inquiry, who am I, is the I itself. What is this I? Where does it come from? How does it arise? Self-inquiry is an investigation. The investigation opens the mind to new answers. Ramana speaks of meditation as a different process. Meditation, he says, is contemplation of the self as Sat-Chit-Ananda. This seems more like the statement, I am Brahman, or I am that, or such, rather than the question, who am I? This affirmation, which uses the projective power of thought, can never have the power of the inquiry, which opens the mind and passes beyond any mind. Now some ideas for practice. Reflect on this. Where does your sense of identity come from? This inquiry must be thorough. Ramana says of the seeker, at some time one will have to forget everything that has been learnt. Everything that has been learnt, these are all just ideas. Are you an idea? You know some things are certain beyond any doubt. You exist, and you know that you exist. You have a sense of reality. Where does this reality come from? Is it from the world, or is it somehow closer to your knowing of the world? You have this same sense of reality in dreams. Where does it come from when you're dreaming? Now, on to the videos for the week. Now we have Swami Sarvapriyananda saying, all beings are in me.
In the Gita, Sri Krishna says, look at the glory of my power. All beings are in me, but I am not in them. First. Second, and yet look, none of them are in me also. Those are the two lines? Yes. Fourth verse and fifth verse. Sixth verse again he says, I am in all the atmospheres. What does he say? All beings are in me, but I am not in them. Statement 1. Statement 2, all beings are not in me. Apparently absolutely contradictory. How can you say all beings are in me, and next you can say all beings are not in me? How do you understand this? The language of paradox? Yes. This is another strategy which Vedanta uses to express the absolute. First of all, appreciate the contrary nature of the statements. All beings, I am not in all the beings, but all the beings are in me. Statement 1. Statement 2, all the beings are not in me. Pashyame yogameshwaram. Look at the glory of my yoga. What is this glory, and what kind of magic trick is this? We all understand it now. The example of, let's take the gold and the ornaments example. So at first, what does it look like? That there is a necklace and maybe a bangle or a ring, and they're made of gold. The classic example. Now suppose the gold says, our first approach to it, on the first pass, the way we look at it is, oh, there is a necklace and it is made of gold, or there's gold in the necklace. But really, is it true to say that the gold is in the necklace, or the necklace is in the gold? We never use such language as necklace in the gold. For example, let me give you another example which makes it very clear. In the Hudson River, there are waves in the river. At the first pass, we might say there is water in the waves. But actually, is water in the waves, or are the waves in water? Think about it. Is water in the wave? Is the wave a thing which is filled with water? Is that true? Or is it the water which comes up as a wave? First one or the second one? How many vote for the first one? How many vote for the second one? Everybody votes for the second one. So literally, it's more true to say that the waves are in water. Can we say that the ornaments are in gold? Normally, we don't speak that way. But normally, so can we say that the ornaments are in gold? Gold is not in the ornaments. Ornaments are in gold. That's what Krishna says. I am not in the beings of the world. The world is in me. Now understand it the way we did in the morning. Am I in the world, or is the waker and the waker's world, dreamer and the dreamer's world, deep sleeper and the deep sleeper's darkness, all of them are in me, the consciousness? Our common sense approach, here is a world, I am in the world. What did Vedanta teach us? The world is in me. How? As I am awareness, and everything that there is in me, the awareness. But not the mind. Remember, make a distinction. Otherwise, it will lead to what is called subjective idealism. So, first pass, the world is in me. Krishna says, I am not in them, but they are in me. Step 1. Second step, Krishna says, but they are not in me. He said they are in me, then they are not in me. Think about it. First we said, is there gold in the necklace? When we thought that, no. Gold cannot be in the necklace. Necklace is not a thing in which gold is put. It is rather the gold which appears as the necklace. So the necklace is in gold. Necklace is in gold. Ask the question, how is the necklace in gold? Is the necklace in gold the way we are in this room? Is there gold and in which there is a necklace? Here's a room and we are sitting in the room. Is there something like that? There's gold and in that a necklace is put. Is it like that? They're not two separate things. Is there something called a necklace which is smeared with gold? That would be a fake necklace. No. In what sense is there a necklace in the gold? Yeah, correct. There are too many Vedantins in this room. Name and form and use. Nama, Rupa, Vyavahara. These all three together are called convention. Convention, Vyavahara. Necklace has a particular form. If you change the form, it's no longer a necklace. It still will be the same gold. Are you with me? It has a particular name, necklace. If you change the name and call it a ring, it's no longer a necklace. It is a particular use. You put it on your neck. So name and form and use, they continue. But other than name and form and use, is there a thing called a necklace? Once you take the gold away, is there any entity, object, thing apart from the gold? No. What did we say? There is a necklace. The necklace is in the gold, we said first. Now we are saying, where is the necklace in gold? Magic. He says, Pashya me yoga me, watch the magic of my yoga, Krishna says. Where is the necklace in the gold? You'll say, no, Swami, you just said name is there, form is there, use is there. But apart from the gold, can you use a name and a form and if you take the gold away, can you wear it on your neck? No. If you take the gold away, can you call it a necklace? Will your name float in the air without a thing? No. If you take the gold away, will the form remain? Will the form of the necklace remain if you take the gold away? No. So even the name and the form and the use are also not there without the gold. There is no such entity called the necklace in the gold. First of all, the question that whether there is gold in the necklace, that's silly. We said first, there is necklace in the gold, step one. Second, when we analyze closer, we find no entity called a necklace in the gold. Similarly, if you go further, you will see, first of all, we felt, I am in the world. Next, we see the world appears in me, the consciousness. Second, third step, which he said, watch this magic of mine. Do the magic with the world now, make the world disappear. In you, apart from you, the consciousness, apart from you, the existence. What world is there? You say, why, Swami, here's the world. Isn't it in your awareness? I'll ask you in another way. Does the world exist? Is there existence? Yes. And if you are existence itself, Sat, apart from existence, what can exist? If you say apart from existence, apart from A, not A. Apart from existence, not existence, it will disappear. If you are existence itself, apart from you, can there be a universe? No. In you, can there be a universe? Because when you examine the universe in you, what you consider to be the universe, the world, your body, your thoughts, any of it, is it apart, any bit of it is apart from consciousness? Is it apart from existence? It appears to be. Clearly it appears to be an object. But that object itself is nothing other than name, form and use. Nama Rupa Vyavahara. It is not different from you, yet it appears to be different from you, and the world continues the way it is. This is called Maya. This is what he says, Pashyame Yogameshwaram. 3 steps. What are the 3 steps? Not that the world, not that I am in the world. Step 1. Step 2, the world is in me. Step 3, the world is not in me. This is a way of doing away with the world. First, the world seems to be so important, big and powerful and real. I seem to be so small and helpless. And then I become big and the world becomes something in me. Third, the world is not there. I alone exist. And yet the magic is everything continues the way it is. The Advaita Vedanta says what we are pointing out is the way the things really are already. The first step which we started, that is our delusion. That's our delusion. And yet nothing has changed. The world continues as it is. The movie continues as it is. We just realize it's a movie. Yeah. And then you can enjoy it. We are actually, one second, let me watch the time also. We are actually,
one more question.
Okay. We are actually, thank you. The issue, I was talking about Tibetan Buddhism, which we are studying. The real issue there is they are struggling with, over a period of nearly 1,000 years, with the nature of what they call conventional truth. Vyavaharika. Because in their view, ultimate reality is empty. Then what is this? How much reality to give to this? Is it nothing? Because Buddha said, no, it's not nothing. Is it something? The Buddha said, no, it's not something. What exactly is the nature of this reality? Because this reality is the ultimate reality. Properly understood, it is the ultimate reality. We will call it Brahman, they will call it the void, emptiness. Improperly understood, samsara. Nagarjuna, 2000 years ago, he says that emptiness is a tool, is a method to enlighten you, to free you. But if you make emptiness itself into a philosophy, he calls it the emptiness of emptiness. Emptiness itself is empty. That means if you make emptiness into a philosophy, world does not exist. That is my philosophy. He says, nobody can help you. That's the worst kind of thing you can do. Those who take the world to be real, they're caught in the world, and that's it. They're samsara. Those who become enlightened, they transcend the world. But those who are not enlightened and yet deny that the world exists, they're trapped. Nothing can help them. And he says, yatha sarpa durgrihita, as catching a snake in the wrong way is going to bite you. What's going to bite you? Emptiness. So the whole thing is to understand how to understand this reality. And nearly 1,000 years of very subtle debate. And I asked the professor, when I look back upon it from our modern understanding of Advaita, the ultimate reality, Paramarthika, and the transactional or conventional reality, Vyavaharika, the differences are very, very sharp, clear, well-defined, and very useful. Once you get the hang of it, it's pretty, like a movie and a screen, like a book and the story it tells, like that. Two truths. But when you read these debates going on in Tibet over 1,000 years between monks on those icy plateaus, I guess they had nothing more to do, so they go on subtle debates. I told the teacher, you get the feeling of that before this building was built, it's like visiting the construction site. There's a lot of activity going on, a lot of material sort of building and breaking, and things are coming up. How what we are now using as the two truths, how they came to it painstakingly over centuries of thought and debate and meditation and practice and trying to get it right.
And now we have Mooji, who is talking about forget everything and start being.
So my challenge to you is, what if you didn't have to do anything about anything at all? Nothing at all to do, nothing at all to do about anything. Yes, make a cup of tea because that doesn't give you any trouble. Whatever it is you have to do, answer the phone, make this appointment, whatever. But it's not accompanied by this idea that there is something that I need to do to be stable in the awareness, because I tell you that is a trap. Forget about it. If you touch this idea, you believe it instantly into existence. And then you have to believe another idea to remove it. So why not drop both ideas in the first place and stay where you are? You're simply here within which all that arises for you, including the sense of spirituality, forget about spirituality then. Forget about enlightenment and forget about you also. And what remains here? That which cannot be gotten rid of remains. It's just that, simpler than simple. Sometimes we overuse the intellectual faculties, which are only meant to take you up to the seeing, and thereby they say goodbye. We have served you enough, they will go. You're simply here. All this knowledge that we acquire, called spiritual knowledge, is only a mirror for the timeless to see itself. And for what reason? For no other reason than it's fascinated with its own recognition for some reason. I don't see that the idea that something is difficult, which is a persistent notion in the psyche of the human expression of consciousness, that we just have to do something to kind of, sometimes we're speaking like also a sense that we must get something accurately. So I said, no, there's no accuracy in the self. Or everything is the self. If you give up all your notions, all your effort to try and get somewhere, just drop it right here now, because you have the power to do it. Just drop it. Yes. Just like you're sitting in a restaurant full of people, clinking glasses and utensils and stuff, and talking, and there's music, and yet you can have a sweet conversation with your friend sitting across the table, because you don't let it in. Yeah. In the same way, you don't let these thoughts in, that there is something that I need to do to stay more present. And the minute you are without this thought, the recognition is here. You know what? Oftentimes, this moment of seeing is attended by great laughter. There's nobody laughing, it's just, it seems too simple to be true. Because how many books, how many libraries, how many CDs, how many teachers, how many stories can it all be pointing to this simplicity? My God, what a joke, what a strange thing, that I simply am. Some full acceptance of this ever-present truth happens, as it were. We can give it the title of grace or sort of benediction or whatever it is, but it simply happens. And this movement that there is something that needs to be corrected, yes, at times I can say this, because another time I might tell you, you know what, you need to stop doing that and do this. And there has to be that flexibility, that openness, which is present in the beingness, to actually hear that and see the sense in that in the moment, and still see that although you have to do something to see that, actually you have to do nothing to be that. So this is a kind of paradox that seems to happen. And we are mostly molested by these thoughts that something gets in the way. Yes. So there's a time when I'll tell you, yes, in the moment this thing seems to be in the way. And I'll also ask you, in the way of what? Yes. And what is witnessing the sense of this obstruction, being in the way of what? We have said that awareness cannot be on the other side of working through any process or practice. It has to be that in which even the very idea, the striving, the first thought happens already in the awareness. So any journey from that thought onward can only happen in awareness, but cannot be taking you to awareness as an objective goal. It is only the discovery of the subject to itself. And sometimes when you read it, of course, in trying to convey that which really cannot be conveyed with words, it cannot be touched or carried in the word. At best, you may say, out of the irrefutable authority of the seeing, those words are imbibed with a sort of presence. They have a power in them. They have more light or something in them when they come from that seeing, at best. Yes. That when you yourself are the seeing and the experiencing, and yet beyond at the same time, you cannot explain this, and as I said before, thankfully you don't have to write a thesis about it. It's just your own inner seeing. Something very private, let's use the word for that for the moment. But it cuts away, strips back all these layers of should do's and should do nots, and leave the truth in its nakedness as it is, here present now. What can be simpler than that? Prior even to simplicity, you are that. Our minds are really enjoying this complete rest. When the mind is in complete rest, meaning that it's not carrying any intention, any notion that there's something to be attained in order to be something, it spontaneously is one with self. It is self is self. Yes. Drop the notion that something stops you from being this. That's only a notion arising in this. What is this? And who is there outside of this to know it? In this that we are, it does not even say, I am this. This is why I said, missing the obvious. Because we engage with some construction about what this must be. And then looking at your mind and your conditioning, you feel unworthy. I'm not worthy of that, actually. You identify with that, which gives a sense that you are less than. Because as long as there's a search, there is a sense something is missing. Therefore, this is why they're searching.
And now we have Nome, who talks about egoless self.
That you should know yourself is the advice of all the wise. How can you know yourself when being is not an object? How can you not know yourself, your own being, which is consciousness, self-luminous? In his spiritual instruction, the Maharshi has pointed out, are there two selves that one should know or not know the other? Who is it that would wish to know the self? Or who is it that is subject to the illusion of ignorance and its consequent bondage, and who is desirous of liberation because he intuits it's his natural state? Without knowing yourself as you really are, what can really be known? If you treat the self as if it were an object, to be attained or lost, to enter into as if it were a state, or to depart from as if you would come down from that state. To treat the self as if it were an object is delusive. The self signifies yourself. And all the teachings of the sages and scriptures that speak of the self, the absolute, are speaking of you in your real nature. What are you in your real nature? Your experience so-called, your knowledge so-called, of anything else depends upon the view of yourself, the definition of yourself. This is why Sri Bhagavan says in Saddarshanam, Truth Revealed, that it is only as long as the ego is taken to exist, there is the ego sense, will there be the threefold division of the universe, the individual, and the Supreme Self, or God. The three are not really three, he says. The division, the multiplicity, appears only so long as oneself is not known. The self, which is pure being, consciousness, bliss, is ever existent. It is non-dual, and it alone is. If that very same self is assumed to be, through the power of imagination, an individual entity or ego, then all illusion sprouts from there. Since it is illusion, it is not really existent, but it seems to be. If we want illusion to vanish and perceive reality in such a manner that reality comprehends itself, then we must know who we are. And how else to know who you are unless you question the very one that seems to be individualized even now? What is it that you refer to as I in yourself? What constitutes the self? Can it be the body? Can anything perceived through your senses be yourself? Can anything conceived in the mind be yourself? What is this seemingly individualized self? What marks off or defines its individuality? That is, what is it in itself? It is not so important what is appended to it by way of the form of definition, whether it be of the mind or the body or something of the world. All those come after the notion I arises. Ask yourself, for whom is the experience of all these things? Who is it that lends a reality and identity to all these things? With the appearance of the individual, bondage is possible, suffering is possible. With the rise of the individual, the ego, dualism seems to be the case. Inquire within yourself and determine what this individual is, if he is. If you so inquire, you will find undivided being. And in that absolute undivided existence, which is birthless, formless, and deathless, which has no condition or division, you will know yourself. Not yourself will know another self. But this is knowledge in which being and knowing are identical. Not as one person knowing something else, but the innate existence knowing itself with its own light. For this existence, there is no beginning and no end. For this existence, there is nothing else whatsoever. No departing from itself, no returning to itself. From this undivided existence, or real self, comes all wisdom. Wisdom is really that knowledge which knows itself. Such knowledge is not an idea or set of ideas. How could you be an idea? Real knowledge is being, and is not lost or attained at any time. That knowledge constitutes self-realization. So self-realization is not an event in time. It is not more at one point and less at another. Ideas of gain and loss, exiting and returning, attaining and otherwise, can arise only after the notion of individuality is taken for granted. Likewise is it with every other duality and every doubt regarding the nature of the self. The one remedy for all such illusion is simply to inquire and know yourself. Then you find illusion to be rootless. Indeed, you find it to be beginningless, that is, it did not start. Who then is bound? There is no one bound. Who gets free? No one gets free. What was sought as liberation is your own nature. You do not have another nature. Nor is there anything else existing. So know yourself.
So now we will take a few minutes to meditate. Breathe in and breathe out. Notice the breath coming in and going out. Feel the breath. And just notice that you exist. You exist, and you know that you exist. And now inquire, investigate within yourself, within your actual experience right now. Where does your sense of identity come from? Is it from the body, the senses, the life force? Is it from thoughts or the mind? Or is it something deeper than all of those? Where does this sense of reality come from? How about the sense of reality in a dream? What within you is not an idea? but is always there, even when you're not thinking. And who am I? All right, let's close with a chant. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om. Peace, peace, peace. If this satsang was of interest to you, I have more for you, a free book site, a YouTube site, and my blog. The URLs will be on screen next. These satsangs will continue in the coming weeks with this series based on the Ramana Maharshi book, Who Am I? Thank you for letting me share this teaching with you.